the actual sort of tournament of TI was like still pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But I think compared to last year's, a little bit underwhelming. I wasn't at this year's, so I'm coming from a strictly like viewer point of view.
Sure.
But I want to talk about sort of the actual tournament, not the sort of spectacle of it and the merch and all the fun that we had there
the matches,
and everything.
the lineups.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, the winners, what we thought of that, the teams, that type of stuff, because that's also part of TI.
Yeah.
Sure.
So let's go into that.
Brian and I were terrified after Newbie had secured its spot, where it's like, okay, Newbie is the finalist. They will be in the grand finals. And teams started getting knocked out. Brian and I were like, oh my God, what if like Newbie and LGD is the final? Like, what if it's two Chinese teams? Like, Newbie going into TI4 was really boring to watch. They were just not an exciting team. And
they were 7-8 in group stages.
And then they went
also.
12-3, which is crazy. But, I mean, Chinese Dota, if you don't know, is just a very different pace. It's very slow. It's very psychological, more so than it is based around team fights.
That's
it's
sometimes being proven true and sometimes not.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
now-
and we saw that with TI4. I mean, the matches, the Newbie Vici final was some of the best Dota I've ever seen.
It was. I would say I wasn't super entertained. That's not to say it wasn't played perfectly.
It was
Yeah.
flawlessly played Dota.
Yeah.
That sometimes was like, okay, just end it because it's over.
Yeah,
Like,
it was a systematic dismantling of the other team,
Absolutely.
which is like great. It was just like pick you off and pick you off and pick you off and pick
This
you
might
off.
sound like really morbid, but it seemed like the lethal injection was at the start and it just took time.
It just- the
it's
life
like
was
you
just
were just
draining out of
like
Vici.
there's no hope, and that's not necessarily exciting if you want to watch. You know, everyone loves the big plays and big
course.
comebacks and whatever, but it was really good Dota.
And I think it's for that reason that a lot of people thought the grand finals were not exciting. It was kind of anticlimactic that like, oh, Vici came in and then they won their first game and it's really exciting. Oh, and then Newbie won. Okay. I don't know. Like, I feel like people just didn't expect Newbie. Newbie came out of nowhere. They were a team that was getting slaughtered in the group stages, and they eventually they came out on top enough to stay in it, and then they suddenly became this unstoppable wrecking ball.
Yeah.
Like, people were terrified of them. People were very obviously like nervous going into fight Newbie.
Yeah, I think more than anything, it had to do with the format of the actual event. More like the games were good, whatever. I mean, like the games aside, I feel like it had a lot to do with the fact that we knew Newbie was going to be in the grand finals 2 days ahead of time, and then they just kind of sit there. So
They got rusty for 4 days.
Well, not that they got rusty. I mean, they won, but they they got rusty in the sense of like, I don't know who these people are. And I feel like even though Valve put on an amazing event, like it was really well run, things were on schedule, which is not easy to do in esports, they didn't do enough to sort of make me care about the people who were playing. Like last year in the international, like I love Alliance, and I loved Navi. Like, I just know those people. I know Dendi. I know Loda. I know Admiral Bulldog. Like, Admiral Bulldog's my favorite player. So, like, I had favorites, and they had cool, like, personal videos and interviews and stuff like that with them. But with two Chinese teams going into it, it's a little bit tougher to make people care about everyone. And I think that they could have done a little bit more service to the people who are watching by letting us know more about these players. Like, the only one who really seemed to have any sort of personality was ROTK
He was so
before the
good.
All-Star match.
Yeah.
And that was great. So by the end of it, I was like, yeah, ROTK, like, maybe I'll root for Vici because that guy's on it. But
That's
there's
why I
someone
started
on,
liking Vici, is because of him.
yeah, and there's someone on Newbie named Banana. Like, that's a fun name, so maybe I'll
What's
root for
Banana
Banana.
like?
Yeah, but
Banana Mancer.
I felt like that was a really kind of a missed opportunity that, I don't know. What did you guys think about that?
The hype reels before every match or every lineup or whatever that showed, like, this is where this team came from, this is who they are, that stuff really helped solidify that.
Yeah.
But at the event itself, yeah, you're right, there wasn't a whole lot of that. But I think that's because they expect a lot of viewers to know who they are going into it. You're supposed to know who Banana is, and you're supposed to know why Dendi matters.
But they also have a newcomer stream for
Yes.
people. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like that answer to me isn't good enough, that you should know about these teams going into it.
Yes, and I think the production of TI needs to be different in that respect. Like, you look at a lot of sports, I mean, and Valve is absolutely handling this like a sport. The press conferences with players, the press conferences with Valve, all of that stuff is very much evocative of, like, an NBA press conference. It's very much handled like a quote-unquote real sport.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing Valve do some higher production values in terms of, like, discussing where these teams came from, who they are, between matches, after the show, before the show, like before the tournament proper, like that could go a long way in helping kind of solidify what they're doing.
Yeah, I also, I don't know, maybe I just wasn't looking enough or something, but it seemed like Newbie was not super excited to be there, and even after they won, they still seemed like a little nervous or shaken, like they couldn't believe it or something like that.
I don't know if it was because if they were nervous, like you're saying, or if it was because for respect. I've heard that was a lot of the things, like they didn't want to be disrespectful to Vici by acting super excited that they won. I don't know if that's just one theory that I heard about it, but I'm totally with you. They look like I gave them $5. Like they just won so much money. It was the biggest Dota 2 tournament of the year, the biggest prize pool in esports history, and they're like, "Yay, we won!" It's like, smile. At least give us a smile. Come on. But there was nothing. They could have also been exhausted.
That's probably true.
Who knows? Who knows why that was? But it was a little bit lackluster.
From an outsider's perspective of someone who, not one of us, who probably, if they just watched the the final 4 days, you only saw Newbie play twice.
Yeah.
And so that was like, they're just like this unknown entity, and it's like, all right, and all these other teams beat each other and they're out, and then you're gonna play this team that no one knows anything about.
That's a good point. They should have been talking more about Newbie throughout the weekend. Like, there was no video to show that, like, yo, Newbie is kind of unstoppable right now. So
show
maybe
more
consider
of the
that,
stuff from
everybody.
the qualifiers or that help them get in there or something, like throughout the year. Or, I don't know. Like that's a really great point.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The ESPN 2 like preview show that they put on was like kind of had elements of that.
A little bit,
but they could have done more. I think.
Yeah.
At least to like be like, hey, this team is still around. They're watching the games and analyzing. So.
What did you guys? I actually didn't catch the ESPN2 show.
Yeah.
Did they show it at the tournament or anything like
that?
Nope.
It was. So we went back. We ordered pizza and we watched it at an apartment, and it was 15 minutes of like, this is really good. This is really thoughtful. Some technical issues, and then the back half of it was just like really bad interviews.
Yeah. I heard that there wasn't much gameplay and they didn't explain what Dota is.
And that was by design.
Right.
I mean, we talked to Valve and they said like, this is our production.
We have half an hour.
Yeah.
It will take longer than half an hour to
Explain.
get people understanding Dota.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a missed opportunity too, because they did it in free to play really well with that diagram thing that they had, and
then
Toby
having
explaining
the source filmmaker stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of giving you like a better visual representation of it. Stuff's great.
I don't know if that was the best idea, but again, I didn't see it, so I can't really criticize because I don't want to be one of those.
My biggest
people.
criticism was just that the sound was just not very good for most of
Yeah,
it.
there was a weird like
interview sound.
The rest of their Valve
was a little
produced
echoey.
stuff was great, but this was not.
I will say the analyst desk was probably one of my favorite like production things of Bruno and James and Shiver and like all those gods. All that was so professional. Like it was like always they had stuff to throw to and like a panel of people who had stuff to say.
And they were ready. Like when something went wrong, like when that EG game paused for like 10 minutes, they threw to the production desk or the analyst desk and they just talked about the match, about TI, and they had interesting things to say. They weren't like awkward, like, oh no, something went wrong. Like they were switched on the whole time.
Yeah.
They were great. They were like, I was even like tweeting at them throughout the event, and they would tweet back at me like, "That was super cool." Like they love the community and they're members of the community and stuff like
they
that.
rotated
That's
out
great.
guests. They had Korean Flax on there. They had workshop people. They had like Bruno was being funny and had his suits,
doing
and
magic tricks,
playing with the crowd and stuff like.
Do you see the magic trick where he pulled out the Timo hat and he was like wrong game and just like tossed it behind him? It was Bruno's suits.
It was well done. It was not. It was never like pandering or anything.
How the event was run, like beautiful, like amazing. Like I was saying, everything was on time. They had the timers there. Like you guys were letting me know when a game was about to start, and it would start exactly then. Like that was exciting to me. I've been covering esports for a long time, and that never happens. So that was really encouraging from that perspective. But I mean,
it was like clockwork.
You're so funny.
Mitch is looking at me in the worst way. All right.
So overall, it seems like TI was a success.
Yeah.
Successful
Great
event.
Can't wait for next year.
Yeah, I'm going back next year.
To get more swag.
Yeah.
Love it. Everything in here, like from like
Dota.
section over is just so Dota-y.
This is my this is my favorite piece of swag, by the way. Is this
The water bottle?
Yeah. It's
And
a really good
Rammus
water
and
bottle.
Timo are just like.
Yep.
Aww.